What's up everybody and welcome back to my channel. I am so freaking committed to my costume, even if this hat barely fits my head. This is my final long form video of the day before I get into my pop culture minutes, and I'm still not taking it off. Let's get into a recap of what went down on Married at First Sight. I'm combining both into this one video, by the way, the decision day in addition to the reunion. So decision day. Here's a list of the couples that stay together. They are Amani and Woody, Bennett and Amelia, and Karen and Miles. The first two couples were a done deal for me. I knew from day one that they were going to stay together this entire process. But Karen and Miles surprised me a little bit, as much as they could, considering the fact that a lot of people were really inconsiderate when it came to posting spoilers, so I knew ahead of time. But it still kind of surprised me that they did stay together, like, you know, for Miles' sake, but also for Karen's sake, with as much as she complained about him, right? As for the couples that wound up divorced, they are Henry and Christina and Olivia and Brett. Very obvious from the very beginning that Henry and Christina wouldn't work out, but Olivia and Brett started off pretty strong with each other, just to decline as the weeks progressed. They already decided not to continue on with their marriage ahead of like the little checkpoint, so we already knew it was just not happening. A few quick thoughts about the decision day. I didn't like Amani's joke about like getting divorced, you know, like you could tell that Woody's heart really just like dropped at that point. And I don't know, I find it a little bit sadistic to play with people's like hardcore love emotions like that. But you know what? I do love them as a couple. They were my favorite couple this entire series. Bennett, of course, had to get a tattoo to commemorate his love for Amelia. It was like her initials on his butt. I have to be honest with you guys. I really had to like sit myself down and check myself for the hateration I was throwing towards him, because you know what? My original note was like, oh my God, he's such an attention whore. He had to take all the attention to do something incredibly dramatic and quirky out of the box. But then I was like, you know what, Grace? What if that's just how he is? You know what I mean? What if he just does whatever first comes to his heart? Like, that's okay. Calm it down, girl. When it comes to Miles and Karen, I've got to say that I'm really proud of Miles for telling Karen what he needs from her moving forward. Like, she spent the entire season complaining about him, and he finally at the reunion was like, listen, like, I need this, this, and this from you moving forward. Like, you know, this isn't like a me gung-ho, yes, like you're the love of my life. I have no doubts about you. I've got my doubts about you too, just so you know. And this is what I need from you. I was like, it is about time that he starts trying to, you know, get something out of this relationship for once, because he's just been pouring into it and pouring into it and pouring into it and not receiving that much back. It's not to say that Karen hasn't contributed to their relationship at all. She has in her own small ways, but definitely not at the same level that Miles has up until this point. They clearly weren't in love at that point, but you know, they decided, listen, we're compatible enough to move forward with this kind of foundation that we've already built. And so I do wish them the best of luck with that. And I was also proud of Henry for airing Christina out in front of the experts for attempting to blackmail him with that rumor she made up about him being gay. Honestly, I wish someone would have called it out for what it was. You know what I mean? Like, outside of blackmail, which is a criminal offense, by the way, it was incredibly homophobic of her to do that, you know? And I'm starting to wonder, I followed her on her Instagram account for a little bit, and she was super like pro gay rights, pro trans rights, pro like all these like social causes that you would think she was this like wonderful person, but then watch her on the show and it's a completely different story. So I'm wondering if that's why she was going so hard pro all these things online, because she knew all of this was about to come out about her, and that it was in fact homophobic of her to treat her husband this way. She never once denied that she blackmailed Henry as well, which was something very noteworthy. She shot him the death glare of a woman with a foiled plan when he dropped that bomb on the experts. Brett and Olivia were brought back. I don't know why, you guys. I am so over them. Listen, they're both wrong. They're both condescending. And they're both stubborn. You know, move on. Olivia doesn't hear anything that anyone says as well. Like, she just came in guns a-blazing, ready to talk about everything she hated about Brett. And whenever an expert would step in to like mention something, she would just, you know, pause so they could talk, but she obviously wasn't listening to them. She would just continue on with her line of attack. And I love that they called her out for that. They're like, Olivia, are you listening? Like, are you taking in anything we're saying? You clearly don't want to believe anything Brett's saying, but listen, like, we're as neutral parties trying to tell you a little bit about yourself as well. I definitely do agree with her saying that Brett is fake though. And she actually gets a little bit more into that at the reunion special, which I absolutely loved. And speaking of the reunion special, I love the way that Woody loves Amani and love in general. You know, those kinds of guys, I don't know if they're rare. I don't know if I'm just not finding them, but like a guy who's just like Tom Cruise, jump on the chair. I'm in love. I love. I love my, you know what I mean? Like he's just amazing. And it made me really sad. Like, you know, when he talked about how he kind of like couldn't even have hoped to have found love. I was like, why would you say that? You're very successful, very intelligent, very educated, very loving, kind, funny, charismatic person. Like anyone would be lucky to be with Woody. So like, you know, hearing him say that was like just a beautiful show, display of vulnerability that really took me off guard as well, because he just seems to have it all, you know, like he truly does. By the end of their segment, he drops down on one knee and offers Amani a ring that he personally chose and like paid for and everything, because, you know, the ring provides them with the wedding bands. And he's like, I really want to give you something that's like from my heart. And I just love it. You know, I just love to see a guy so passionate about loving his woman. And like, you know, it just made me so freaking happy. It really did, you guys. And I also loved how Amani surprised Woody with her attempted last name change. She's like, you know, I tried to change my last name to Randall. I got all the paperwork down. I went down to, you know, I wanted to go to the Social Security office, but of course, with all this virus stuff, it is closed. Okay, let's get into the Olivia and Brett thing that I was telling you guys about. Olivia clocked Brett for pretending that he's like this super duper frugal person and like financially like astute person. Remember like when she was trying to like plan dates with him and stuff, and he's like, oh my God, it's such a waste of money. Oh my God, I drink cheap wine, box wine, all that stuff. She's like, dude, you've been on dating apps since this thing has ended. First of all, he lied because he told the experts, oh, I haven't really been dating. She's like, nope, I've got receipts from a lot of my friends who match with you, run me back the details, other women who, you know me from the show, DMing me about matching with you. So you have been dating a lot, you know? And you know what? Before we even get into her clocking him, why don't I just say this? This was the first thing that came to my head. Brett, when he left Olivia in the apartment with no food or anything like that, it was because he felt like she wasn't taking the pandemic seriously enough and she was leaving the house to meet other people. But come to find out, he's trying to date the whole of New Orleans in the middle of a pandemic. Really? And he wouldn't even come to the reunion, and his excuse was because of quarantine situations with his work. No, that is absolute BS, because if he was so worried about like not coming into contact with people outside of his home, then why is he on Tinder serial dating? It makes literally no sense. He's probably out going to restaurants and stuff like that. So of course he could have made it into the studio if he wanted to. He was just too humiliated by the way he portrayed himself like a fool on television. He knew no one liked him and he didn't want to face their wrath, which, you know, the host was asking everybody, you know, what do you think about Brett, blah, blah, blah. Henry went in, and I don't blame him based on the way that Brett disrespected his friend and disrespected Olivia as well as a man like about to get married. Miles said that he's the same in person as you see on the show. Like no one liked him. When the host asked if anyone kept in touch with them, literally the only person was Woody. And that's because Woody is a really nice person who wants to check in on everybody. But outside of that, no one is checking for Brett, and they had nothing nice to say about him. And he knew it would be that way. And that is a real reason why he came. He just wants to seem like, you know, more careful and more holy than thou, blah, blah, blah. But in his real life, look at the way he conducts his finances. Serial dating, like Olivia said, she's like, you're too broke to take your wife out on a date, but you can go out on a million dates with all these random girls. Really? And then he's going out with random girls in the middle of a pandemic, but he dumps his wife because she went to check on her parents in the middle of a pandemic. You know, the guy is fake. Olivia is 1000% right about that. Amelia and Bennett are so happy together in their new home in Virginia as well. He found a job as a solar energy salesman. And it was nice to see Amelia basically admit that they were forced to hammer in conversations about like kids, and that it's not something that they're really talking about anymore outside of the show. I was like, you know what? I used to wonder, I used to genuinely wonder, because some people, I recap Teen Mom, and these people really do meet a person and start having kids with them within months. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh my God, is this like a normal thing? Like these people, I thought they were more mature and stable than the Teen Mom people. Why does a 27-year-old who's just not getting into her career, why would she be pushing for having kids so soon? Why would Woody be pushing for kids so soon with Amani? They literally don't know each other. It's been like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks, you know? So it's nice to finally have like 100% confirmation that it's just BS, that the producers keep pushing them to talk about to create some kind of discourse around it. And lastly, let's get into the way that Henry dragged Christina. I have mixed feelings about it, you guys. I know a lot of people are 100% gung-ho about it, but I also feel like it speaks to how sneaky and manipulative and just how much of a mean guy, I say mean, like the Mean Girls, how much the Mean Girls influenced Henry, because he talks about her blackmailing him with a lie that he's gay. Good for him for airing that out, putting that out there. You know, it was wrong of her to do. It was homophobic of her to do, and she needs to be held accountable for it. But then he talked about how, like, from the very beginning, the host was like, how did you never kiss her? Like, was the attraction ever there? He said he had concerns from the very beginning. He said just her impatience. There was people in her posse who came up to me on our wedding day and told me that she was in a relationship with a married man for 5 years. So I already knew going into, and they did toxic things to each other. So I was scared she would treat me that way. And so I'm sitting here like, you mean to tell me you were married to this woman for 4 months and you knew from night one that it wasn't going to work out? Why did you stick out the 4 months? And number two, why did you never, as an adult, as a grown-ass man, why did you never sit down with your wife and have a conversation about these allegations? You know, it's not fair to her that he takes these rumors as gospel. Honestly, they're probably true based on the sketchy nature of Christina's relationship and how she could like jump into marriage 8 months later. I said that in the first recap, that there's something wrong there. And that was another concern of his. He's like, a 5-year relationship, you're only 8 months out. Like, I'm concerned. He never once brought that up to his wife in the span of their 4-month marriage. And they were glued to each other this entire time, cut off from the outside world, and he never once brought it up. Clearly, there's something wrong with this man himself. You know what I mean? Like, what are you in a marriage for if you can't even communicate at all? Like, he never gave her the opportunity to explain her side of things. He never once went, you know what? How weird is it that people who are here for her to support her want to talk poorly about her behind her back? I would want to talk to someone about that. I'd be like, listen, I don't trust your friends. I think your friends are a little bit shady because here they are talking behind your back. FYI, this is what they said. And I would like for you to explain yourself, because I take this process seriously. I only want to get married once and I want to make this work, you know? So is it true? And, you know, even if you didn't want to confront her about the married thing, why not confront her about the fact that she's only 8 months out of a 5-year relationship? Like, really? You never thought to talk to her about it? To me, it's a lack of immaturity. I honestly think Henry needs to grow up. You know, he refuses to communicate. He refuses to do anything to push a relationship forward, to address concerns. When Christina initially brought up the text messages and stuff, they went on that retreat with the other couples and he never once brought it up to her. He was like, oh, I guess we're just going to pretend like it never happened. Like, grow up, dude. I mean, really, like, what, you don't need to be passive aggressive about literally everything in life. Tell your wife that you don't like the way she's treating you. It's unacceptable and you don't want it anymore. It's really that simple. Like, I'm so over him, you know, really heavily leaning into the victim act. And I felt like him waiting for the reunion to drop the married man bomb was very calculated. You know, I think he wanted to humiliate her the way he felt humiliated by her making up that gay rumor about him. I really do. I don't see any other explanation for it. Because to me, at the end of the day, it makes him look as crazy as she looks. Like, here you are, you already knew from the very beginning you didn't want to be with this chick, and you stayed the entire time. And it's like, okay, well, you already knew you didn't want to be with her, so why were you too shy to have the conversations anyway? It's not like you're risking losing a relationship, you know, with someone that you love or anything like that. It's like, listen, I already know I don't care about you. I want to see this process through for whatever reason, so why don't I at least try to get to the bottom of this, and maybe I'll find out that I'm wrong, and maybe I'll find out that you know, I'm right as well. Like, it's worth having that sort of communication. Anyway, Miles and Karen, you guys, I'm just not seeing it for this couple. I'm disappointed, by the way, in the host for never once asking them if they could say that they were in love at this point. I was like, I'm pretty sure everyone would kind of want to know that, you know, but drop ball there. They live really close to Woody and Amani. I thought that was quite cute, but yeah, like, I see, again, Miles constantly leaning into Karen with his body language, Karen constantly pulling away with her own body language, and she just, I didn't like her disposition too much throughout the reunion, not only between the two of them, but like with her and the rest of the cast. I remember Henry was cracking jokes about stuff and she would just give him like death glares. I saw her roll her eyes once. The host told Miles that he was mature for his age. Miles, you know, lit up and like said, you know, thank you, oh me, blah, blah, blah. And she was death stare again. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I feel like he's too positive and happy and warm and loving of a person to be with Karen, but maybe that's just her on-screen persona. I don't know, but her mom rubbed me the wrong way too. You guys remember that in the early episodes when she would talk to Miles like he was on trial or something. I'm like, I don't know. I think her and her mom just have off-putting personalities to me. So it is what it is. I also noticed some new things about her. So number one, she talked about how like the turning point for her was when she realized that Miles was at the end of his rope. She was like, you know, I was ready to go all in when he told me that he's not doing this anymore. Like he's had enough of having to wait, having to give and not receive in return. Then I was like, you know, that's when I, as a wife, decided I need to do this. I was like, really? You wanted to torture this guy, make sure he's at the very end of his rope, and then you'll kind of try to make a little bit of effort, a little bit of a red flag there. And number two, she seems to really be turned on by all the attention that Miles is getting online. She's realizing, oh my God, maybe I don't see it, but everyone else is seeing that I've got a really good man. And so for that reason alone, I'm going to try and figure this out because I don't want no other, you know, heifer taking my man because I know they're in the DMs. I know if we break up, I've got the scarlet letter of being, you know, a pretty miserable wife. Sorry, you know, and he's got this amazing reputation as an emotionally available man who will like be there for you, be affectionate for you, just, you know, boost you up that a lot of women want to get with. So I think that that's probably one of the sole reasons that she's currently trying to, you know, figure out their relationship. But you know what, just based on everything, I don't know if they're in love yet. You guys, do you think they're in love yet? And I'm not talking about right here, right now. I meant like as they were shooting the reunion special.